This is a carbon arc projector, and they used that during the silent film era. In 1927, when the jazz singer came out with a man named Al Jolson, they thought that that would never last. However, they still continued to show silent films until 1932, when RCA introduced sound to the system. So therefore, on this particular here is right here, as you can see in here, is the silent film kind of way that they used to do it. And here up here is the sound that they came into. This is a half-reel projector, which means they'd have to change off every once in a while. Now, because it's a carbon arc that I call it, it's the fact that the arc, the carbon kind of creates an arc of light that comes through the machine. So that's why it was called a carbon arc. And here is a picture of two of them, okay? And it was very toxic. That's why they had like an exhaust thing up there. Okay, so this is a little bit of they would go from one to another projector, and this being the place where they would put the leftover carbon in there, because it was very hot and it was very toxic. This was my grandfather right here, and he's the one that was showing silent films on the second floor of the Oddfellows building, and he was the manager. All the rest of those guys were kind of, they did stoking the furnaces for the coal and stuff like that. But that was back in 1918. And this is what it looked like before they tore it down in 1961 or 62. Okay, this is CinemaScope. At the time, it probably cost at least $50,000, and that's what they used for the CinemaScope. And if you'll come over here, I'll show you exactly where that goes in. And it gets adjusted, of course, but this is your lens that they used for CinemaScope. And they would adjust it accordingly. See, it says CinemaScope right on there, okay? They would adjust this here so that this could still, even though CinemaScope came out later on and was a gigantic thing of the sound system around the theater, they still used the silent film projector for that. Very heavy, very heavy. I'm not sure of exactly how many pounds this weighs, but it's a tremendously important to the theater business. Here's when they first bought the theaters, on April 3rd, 1920, okay? They bought all three theaters. They bought the Hippodrome, which was in Fulton Street. They bought the Glove Theater, which was very new at that point. It was built in 1914, so it was only 6 years old. So it was a very new theater then. And next door, which is was the old Caston Opera House, was the Family Theater, and they had vaudeville there. So they bought all three of those theaters. There was one more theater in Gloversville, can you imagine? That was called the Darling Theater, and the Darlings wouldn't part with it, so they couldn't buy that one. But they bought all threes and cut their competition, and that's why they became so famous. Motion Picture Daily is a magazine that they sent out to everybody. And they were using the Shines, Louis Shine and Meyer Shine. After 20 years of being in business, they wanted to feature them in this magazine. So all of the studios and the mayor of New York and the governor of New York all congratulated them for being in business for 20 years. It was amazing. Over in the Shine building, on the third floor, there's a screening room. Oh, there was a screening room that had about 40 seats in there, and the employees and the people that owned it, Louis Shine and Meyer Shine, would go up there and preview movies before it came into the theater. And they would have ballots, and each ballot was given to their employees to say whether or not they thought the movie was good enough to bring into the Glove Theater, because the Glove Theater was the flagship of the whole organization. Yes. In 1953, I was sitting in the balcony, waiting for my grandfather to get through because I was at middle school at that time. And he came out and he said, here's an application. It's about time you started working for a living, okay? So I became an usher. And then about a year later, I became the head usher. And I had two ushers below me, you know, that worked with me, and I did that until 1962. When I first came in here to see it in 1997, I think it was, 1996 or 1997, I walked right out. I couldn't take it. There was a big hole in the ceiling right over there. In my opinion, for all the work that we've put into it, it better be here. That's all I got to say, because there's a lot of people that don't want it to close, and I can see that. And it's all heart, you know, it has nothing to do with money, but money is the most important thing to keep it going. So if we have a community out there and we have people out there that are willing to contribute to this wonderful theater, then yes, 10 years down the line, 20 years, absolutely. Well, we opened it in 1995 and it's still going, so it's a possibility that they don't want to see it go. So yeah, I think it'll still be here. It's just a dream that can become reality. If we had the demographics, as I said, to be able to pull from our community and have a more richer community area with businesses and stuff, I think we could succeed much easier. Right now, it's harder to do that. It's harder to keep it open because the donations and the foundations and things that we get in. And let me tell you something, people are so great, but it takes much, much more to complete what they started.